Since 1954, Terrebonne General has been a beacon of health and hope in our community. As we mark 7 decades of dedication to your well-being, Terrebonne General Health System remains committed to advancing healthcare, improving lives, and expanding our services to meet your evolving needs. In celebrating our past, we look forward to a future filled with promise and progress. Your health is our legacy. To discover more, visit tghealthsystem.com.
All right, welcome back to Bayou Time. I'm Martin Falls. Very happy to have with us such an important person on the Bayou Time set, Ken Wells, who's an author, and he's written for the Wall Street Journal, Pulitzer Prize finalist. Did I say that right?
That's right.
Yeah, and he's done what a heck of a career. We did the one-on-one, so we won't tell him everything about your life, but the fact that you're still at it.
Still at it. I figure if I keep typing, good things can still happen.
You're right. So, you're doing a great job. And let me come back, Jay, and I'll let you see the Gumbo Life here. And that's Ken Wells's new book. And let me just tell you a little bit about it as we show the picture. Ken's much lauded social and cultural history of gumbo is now on sale nationwide. The expanded and revised paperback edition includes new recipes and the results of a startling experiment to show how bear fat, yes, bear fat forever changed the gumbo pot. And I'm going to let him explain some of the other things in his introduction, but Ken, bear fat, that's unique.
The first time I heard this, I thought, no, that cannot be true. I was interested in what happened with Primo gumbo. The first gumbos, we thought it was a Cajun dish. When I started this book, gumbo was Cajun. My mama, spoke Cajun French. She cooked the gumbo with a roux. There was not a gumbo without a roux. If it didn't have a roux, it wasn't a gumbo. As I started to look into this, though, it turned out that, for about 50 years, they had searched for written references to gumbo, and they had pretty sure it was the Cajun camp because there was an 1804 reference in a book by a Cajun, a French journalist traveling the Bayou country, and he talked about going to a bal de maison, a Cajun house party, and after a night of drinking cheap rum, they had gumbo for breakfast and then paddle away in their pirogues. And of course, the Cajuns, when they came from Nova Scotia, had the roux. Mm-hmm. And today all gumbo is cooked with, you can find a few roux-less gumbos, but in the main. Well, as I started doing this research, thinking the Cajuns had done this, I ended up interviewing the archivist for the Tabasco company, and he had found a reference to gumbo being cooked in 1764.
Wow. And
the Cajuns weren't here yet,
right.
And it was being cooked by people of color in the French Quarter. And these were, in the main, West Africans who had come as enslaved people. In fact, this was a court case involving runaway slaves, and they were giving a gumbo in 1764. Now, there's no recipe for that, but it turns out that, the West Africans cooked with okra and they cooked with rice, and they had this tradition of these really spicy stews. So fast forward, they're cooking for themselves, they're cooking for the people in the big houses, but they don't have the roux, Well, as I delve into this, I find the 1901 Times-Picayune Creole cookbook, not Cajun cookbook, Creole cookbook. And it says we have recipes going back to the very founding of New Orleans. So I go through that thing. There are 9 recipes. Only 2 are cooked with a roux of all those. So basically, Primo gumbo was cooked without a roux. It was
Wow.
it was not a Cajun thing.
Did it have okra in it, like you
It
said?
had okra. We don't have a recipe for this, but most likely it was okra and served over rice and maybe with some filet because, the Choctaw were pounding filet.
So the okra probably sort of gave it its own little liquidy, slimy kind of...
Yeah. Well, my sister-in-law, a Persian, April Wells, she cooks a roux-less gumbo using copious amounts of okra as the thickener. So that, Anyway, so that was kind of clear. Well, now flash forward, when I was doing my research on the book, I ate in 70 separate restaurants all across South Louisiana.
Lucky you.
I gained 75 pounds. Not exactly, but anyway, and not one of those gumbos were cooked without a roux. Everything had a roux. So what happened in the meantime? How did the roux become ascendant? Well, I ended up interviewing Ryan Brasso, who's this very smart Cajun who happens to have, he's from Lafayette, but he has a sinecure at Yale University. And he gives me this outlandish theory. He said, Ken, there was no Crisco in colonial Louisiana. That was an invention of the 1940s. Yeah. And there were not enough pigs. There was no pig farming that early. And he says, do you understand that the most ubiquitous cooking fat in all of colonial Louisiana and throughout the South was bear fat? And I said, really? Were there that many bears? I was a little skeptical, and he went on and said, by the way, by reputation, bear fat has a very high smoke point, and that means that it's a very stable oil. Mm-hmm. So when you're cooking on those, uneven fires in the fireplace or, over a wood stove in the old days, you could use bear fat and it wouldn't burn. Huh? It wouldn't burn. There you go. So, well, that's all. But what would it taste like? I mean, if the bear had been eating roadkill or fish, it can't be good. But maybe acorns, blueberries, who knows? Yeah. So, after the hardcover came out, I kept pondering this, and I said, the only way to prove that is to get some. So when I discovered to my disappointment that you could not buy bear fat anywhere, not even on Amazon, I went online and I found bearhuntingmagazine.com. And there was a guy who was the editor-in-chief of bearhuntingmagazine.com in Arkansas, where my father grew up. Yeah. And he had this rapturous description. When you render the fat of a bear from the Arkansas woods, it speaks to the goodness of the deciduous, on and on and on. So I went, this is my man. This is my man. Right. So I tracked him down and I emailed him and said, I'm curious, and we have this theory by this respected academician about bear fat. I've never shot a bear. I'm not going to shoot a bear. Yeah. But could you send me some bear fat? And he said, yeah, I'll do it. Wow. So he
only you, a Pulitzer Prize finalist, would track down bear fat. I love it. Let's do this. Take a break. We're going to pay a few bills. We're going to come right back with part 2 with Ken Wells. And once again, here's the book, Gumbo Life. We're going to tell you how to get it, too. Don't go away. Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality. All right, we continue our talk with Ken Wells. This is the new book out, Gumbo Life. And we were talking going into the break how Ken tracked down a guy with bear fat. And how much did he send you, Ken?
He ended up sending me a half a cup. It was what he had left over from a bear that he had hunted in Manitoba, Canada. And it turns out that bear had been feeding in cornfields. Oh, wow. So corn-fed bear.
So you didn't have to add corn.
Who knew? Yeah. Anyway, so he sends it to me, and he FedExes it, and it's this beautiful little vial, and it's creamy white, and it's beautiful, and I open it and snip it. It smells a little bit like mushrooms, but it's not, there's nothing wrong with it. And when I announced to my wife that I'm going to be cooking a bear fat gumbo in her kitchen, she says, nothing having to do with bear is going to touch my pots, So I ended up FedExing it to my brother Purge in Houma, because I figured, actually, if you're going to cook the first bear fat brew in 150 years, it should be cooked in the motherland, So, there you go. So I sent it down to Purge. I would have taken it on a plane, but can you imagine being stopped by TSA? Sir, what is that? Well, it's bear grease. Well, step aside.
But you had some taste testers and all.
Well, so what happens is Purge and I, we only had a half a cup, so we downsized my mama's recipe, chicken and andouille. I think we used Savoy sausages, the Trinity, the whole, Tony Chachere's, some seasoning, that sort of stuff, chicken. And, the test was the roux. Is it really true that, the high smoke point is a big deal, and could you really take it? And I have to tell you, Martin, it was the most beautiful roux I've ever cooked in my life. Really? I mean, we went on for about 30 minutes, and it just kept getting darker and darker and darker, almost like mahogany, but it smelled delicious and it didn't burn at all. And, I threw all the stuff into it and we cooked it up. And, Pers and I, shared a bowl, and I thought it was pretty damn good,
Yeah.
But, we can't just be our own witnesses. So I got a couple of things, and I took it to the John Falls Culinary Institute, and I made my friend Randy Jeremy and Marcel B. Avenue taste test for me. And Marcel emailed back a couple of days later, said, it was absolutely delicious. I wish we had some more, So, wow. So it goes to the point that, it's very likely that the Cajuns, having gotten a hold of bear fat, because, they had in Canada, they cooked a dish called poutine, which is basically, it's a light, sort of a white roux over cheese curds or French fries, and we understand why that never traveled to the New World. I mean, they left
Let me ask you this, because you talk about you mentioned poule, which a lot of people outside of this area probably don't know about. But what else is in the book that, with about 3.5 minutes left, what would they see when they open this book? Well,
part of it is also it's partly autobiography, my relationship with gumbo and why my mother's gumbo is the best gumbo, because these chefs will now tell you that there's this thing called flavor memory, so that your mama cooks something and you love it, and 50 years later nothing really stacks up to that because it's been sort of embedded in your brain. The other surprising thing was what I call the gumbo diaspora, and how our little peasant soup sort of escaped from our little kitchens here, mom and pop kitchens, my mom's and papa's cooking gumbo, and became a literally global phenomenon. I mean, John Falls makes gumbo by the ton these days and ships it all over the world. And I venture to say that every major capital, Paris, London, all the big, they have a reasonably good Cajun restaurant with someone who is trained in Louisiana or got trained by Louisiana chefs who cooks gumbo. I was actually shocked. In Chicago, when I first started researching, my father-in-law said, Ken, I got a gumbo place for you. And I said, okay, Chicago gumbo, I don't know. Oh, no, he says, I think it's good, and it's called Heaven on 7, So we go to this nondescript building downtown Chicago, step into the elevator, hit 7, goes up. You open it up, and it's like Saints posters, and there's the meters on the jukebox, and it's all this Mardi Gras stuff on the wall. And
he had a connection.
This is crazy, yeah. So and we ordered the gumbo, and it wasn't my mama, but it was it was a real gumbo. It was cooked with a roux. It was chicken and sausage. So the chef wasn't there, the owner wasn't there, but his daughter was, and I called her over and I said, so what's the story? She said, well, my dad's Greek. And I said, what? She said, yeah, and he went to New Orleans and he fell totally in love with the cooking. And you know what he did? He called Paul Prudhomme and said, can I come to learn? And Paul said yes.
Wow.
This is who we are. This, and this is sort of part of what I call
more than oil and gas.
That's right, and this is sort of what I call the gumbo diaspora and how it sort of got out, because we are kind-hearted people and we love to share our gift to the world, and so basically it's going.
Let me tell this to everybody. So you can find this book, Gumbo Life, right here. Let's put that up there on the screen. You can find it Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop.org, and you've had Geraldine Brooks, author of Horse, called it a mouth-watering culinary memoir. Publishers Weekly said required reading for gumbo aficionados, plus more great reviews. Ken, another great job. You're always working hard and getting things done. I'm very impressed. You tracked the man down, you said in Arkansas, for the bear fat?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And of course, it helped that my daddy was from Arkansas. I kind of laid that on thickly.
You set the scene.
Yeah. My daddy never hunted bears, but he hunted squirrels.
So did it come out the way you wanted?
It did, yeah. No, the editing was great, and I'm very pleased with the final result.
As proficient as you are in writing, I'm sure if you're happy with it, it's a good book, and Dr. Delahaye would be proud.
I acknowledged Al in the acknowledgments. I wouldn't be where I am without Al and his.
Well, I want to thank you for doing that. Thank you for coming, and urge everybody. I got my autographed copy here. You see, I got it because Ken's on my show. But you got to go out there and help him out. Get the Gumbo Life once again. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop.org. Ken, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Martin. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you right after the break.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.